I'm not someone who can give relationship advice to people. My son was 3 months away from being born, and I didn't have money for the delivery. When you're an entrepreneur and you're passionate about your business, it's the only thing you think about. If the job you have doesn't give you enough time to exercise, change jobs.
Many people still believe traditional careers guarantee your future.
No, those are already obsolete, right?
I heard you say that 1 out of every 20 people should be a content creator.
Yes, something like that, and I still think so. There's a mistake that for me is unacceptable that I don't tolerate. And if someone makes it, we don't hire them or they have to leave.
Conquistadora community, welcome to another episode of this, my podcast, which I make with all my love for you. Today, I'm with someone who is not only a business icon, a role model, someone we've let into our homes through a show called Shark Tank and who we all know and love and whom I can call a friend, Rodrigo Herrera. Welcome to the Conquista tu Mundo podcast. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Johnny. Thank you for inviting me.
Likewise, it's an honor to have met you, first of all, at different weddings where we've run into each other and through mutual friends. And today, well, that you give me some of your time, which I know is always very limited, to hopefully provide a little or a lot of value to the people who are listening to us on the other side of the camera. So, if it's okay with you, today I want to reach the people who are out there listening to us to help them understand how to balance their financial life a little more with their personal life. Because many times there are people who are successful at work, but everything starts to fall apart over here, or their children, well, they go off in different directions. So to do that, I'd first like to have a little bit of context about you because, well, we all already know about the shark. We all know the founder of the important company Genoma Lab. But today I want to reveal a little more of that beautiful human side that everyone who knows you have. So, well, what's your family background? Where do you come from? What was that like for you?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you very much. And something that's very important is that I'm not in any position to give people relationship advice. In short, I'll tell you clearly, but I can tell you what definitely doesn't work. The sacrifices you sometimes have to make for the business that end up, well, in a separation or some efforts when you're starting a business, that without a doubt will greatly diminish and hurt your relationship with your partner and your family.
I love it.
I mean, but if I could have a proven track record and say, hey, look, I've been married for 25 years, well, that's not my case.
Of course, but even so,
I'll be specific since there are interesting things.
above all, and I think what you're saying is very important, and that's the direction I'd like to go because nobody has the right formula. But you, in your track record, have had a lot of trial and error as a person, as a partner, and as a dad. So I think today we can understand how to better educate our children, how to talk about money at home, for example. And there are a lot of things I want to get into. So if I may, the first thing I want to ask you is, in your house, when you were a kid, did people talk openly about money, about finances, or was it kind of a taboo subject?
Yes, we talked about it openly.
Who talked to you about money?
My dad talked about money and business, and I started working when I was very young.
Okay, and did he talk to you directly, or did you just overhear him?
I think both.
Oh, really? And when I know that you've mentioned it in different interviews, went bankrupt because the government stopped paying him, as far as I understand. How old were you and how did you take it? What was that like for you?
Well, it was really tough because I was 20 something, and suddenly you realize you have nothing. You have to rethink and start from scratch.
How do you learn you have nothing? Does he tell you or do you realize it?
It's little by little, you start noticing a series of losses and other problems. At that age, you're already very aware until something happens that, boom, hits you completely. In my case, it was when they came and took away the car that was leased. So then you're left without a car, you're left with nothing. And that's when you say, wait a minute, I think I have to start from zero or even below zero because I was even in debt.
With debts, yes. And at that age, when you were clearly still supported by your parents, how did you feel? Fear, stress, or how did you react to that?
Yes, stress and above all, uncertainty.
Uncertainty? You weren't working anywhere yet.
No, I was already working. I already had several jobs. I had a business. I had a hardware store downtown. Then I opened others when I was 17. I mean, I was already starting to do things, so I wasn't worried about what I was capable of. But yes, I was afraid because you'd been used to a certain standard of living and had to start from absolute zero.
Okay. And there, for example, does the relationship between your parents survive this bankruptcy?
No, they were already divorced before that.
And how, I mean, who did you live with?
With my dad?
Ah, okay. So you experienced it directly.
With him, yes.
Okay. And does he get back on his feet, or what does he say to you? Like to, well, because I imagine there's a responsibility as a father to see your son who is also going through this uncertainty, this fear. How was he able to, or how did he try to calm you down, or what tool did he give you?
You know, at that specific moment, there isn't anything specific that really stands out.
Okay.
Something he told me, but what I can tell you is that throughout my whole life, since I was very young, since I was a child, he did two things. He always made me do math problems, even in the car on our way to Querétaro, where we had a ranch. And for the 2 or 3 hours on the road, he would give me math problems, reasoning exercises since I was 5 or 6 years old. So that's something I remember very clearly. And another thing, always working, and the example he set by working, you know? Many times we worry about what we say to our children and about how we try to educate them, when in the end, they're going to end up behaving a lot like we do ourselves.
That opens up a great question for me because many times we can say whatever we want, right? But if the example we're giving them is inconsistent, then they're going to learn from what they see in us. You saw your dad work his whole life, and that created in you, as we've seen before, the desire to work. It was kind of the lesson you brought with you. And you already had, as I understand, you had sold tomatoes, as you mentioned, and you already had a hardware store. You founded Genoma Lab at 23, but I imagine that hunger grew even more after that bankruptcy, or am I wrong?
You know, when it became exponential, it's after that, I was already married. And I had, and my son was 3 months away from being born, and I didn't have money for the birth. And that's where,
Despite having worked since,
despite having worked, because I didn't have money because I was investing in a launch I was planning. It was a different time for startups, right? Unlike today, you didn't just make a deck and have your startup and investors ready. It was very difficult back then. And that's when something happened to me that really changed me and made me really get to work.
how did you handle the birth?
No, I made it on time. I created and launched an extremely successful product that was later replicated in many countries. After that, I launched more products.
But was the baby really good luck?
Literally, yes.
What product was it?
That product back then was, I launched it the day he was born, and it was Silhouette 40,
Ah, okay.
which is still sold in Europe and in some countries.
Okay.
But we were the first with this liposomal formula that today all the luxury brands have.
Okay.
Which is already a very expensive product, right? I mean, liposomes, well, they're very expensive. The truth is now we're working with much more basic products. But that was back then.
Okay. And then from there, you get back up. However, there are a lot of people who think they're taking care of their kids or, I don't know, setting a good example by giving them everything and so on. That hunger comes from the example, from the bankruptcy, from knowing a child is on the way. But how do you think you can make someone hungry when maybe they've had everything too easy and their parents take care of them? But by taking care of them that way, well, they're killing that part of them?
Look, it's very controversial because let me tell you about someone I know. I won't give too many details. Someone I know. eh, He has a lot of money and he's from another country. He always told his children that he worked for an investment fund.
Okay.
And he agreed with his wife and said that he worked for an investment fund. And then he'd say, my boss, he made up a boss. He is the owner of the fund that has about $1 billion and he manages his own fund.
Okay.
But the children are 25 years old today and they still don't know about it.
Seriously?
Exactly. So, and they work in different places and it's just a way of doing things. Extreme, I think it's among the most radical. And another option is to give them everything. I don't know exactly if there's a perfect formula. Some children see their parents have everything and grow very resentful because they can't have certain things themselves. Others, it makes them hungry. Others are given everything, but they're part of the business and form a partnership to help the business grow. I think every person is different and you have to do it individually.
If we played Would You Rather, do you know that game? Do you prefer one extreme or the other? There's no balance, but we know balance is always best. Which do you think is more dangerous? No, would you think it's more dangerous for your children to grow up with very limited money from you, obviously covering the basics, or for them to grow up with too much money?
Logic says very limited, but it depends on the case. I would tell you I would go from one extreme to the other depending on the child.
What would you have to see in him or her?
I mean, it could be that you give them everything, but if their level of commitment, ambition, work, and discipline matches everything you give them, there's no problem, right? I mean, if you say, hey, I give you everything, yes, but you're also working out, you're the best in your classes, or you're already working from a young age and thinking, if I give you 10, how do you turn it into 100? There's no problem there. If you have someone who doesn't put in much effort and is a bit apathetic, then you have to look at the extreme case.
Okay. And what happens, for example, in those cases where you, as a dad, especially if you're in a traditional model, which I don't know if that's your case, but it is mine, where I'm the main provider and I want to teach my son these tools, and the mom gets very involved, for example, like overprotecting him or giving him what you give him. I'm not talking about your specific case. What would you suggest in that situation? Because many times with that kind of overprotection, people say you have to get kids out of their mom's clutches. The couple is already battling. So, how would you encourage our listeners to find common ground instead of taking sides over the child?
I think you have to make them intellectually self sufficient as soon as possible.
Okay.
What does this mean? I mean that by the age of 7, 8, or 10 at the latest, they already know that they can support themselves with some profession. That they say, you know what, I want to start learning how to drive. I'm just making something up, right? I mean, not that it's possible, but, and I already know that I can be a truck driver at 10 years old. I already have a secure future. I mean, for them to have a self sufficient mindset, I think that's fundamental.
Okay. Were you like that with your kids? I mean, I know because I know mutual friends of your kids who are entrepreneurs and go getters, but how were those first conversations with your kids? How did you approach them?
It's individual, each one is very different.
And with, I mean, you get the hang of each one's style, but was it something intentional on your part? Like, you know what, I have to talk about this, I can't let it slip by, or did it just happen naturally?
What I've realized after trying to teach them so many things and give them so much is that each time they become more like what I was when I was their age.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How, what was it like?
No, I mean, they work like I used to work, or they have the ambitions. I mean, I do think that what they see in you is what they're going to do. That's why setting an example is incredibly important.
The example?
Yes.
And do you think that, I mean, I don't know if it happened to you. Yes, you can share with us, but many times that example is, hey, look at me. I mean, I'm a hardworking guy. I'm at the office. Look at how I take care of them. Look at how I provide for them and everything, but I see them very little. So many times the child might reject that part and even trip himself up because he says, since I don't want to be like my dad, you know? Did something like that ever happen to you?
No, I think so. I mean, it's in the essence of who each of them is. I mean, they already have that essence. You can't change it.
Do you really think so?
No, 100%. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, today there are behaviors, there is evidence that there are certain genes and certain factors that you already have an instinctive tendency to react in certain ways that come built in.
Okay.
I mean, and they can be very different even between siblings.
Yes, I mean, because genes are,
Yes, they see reality differently. Their genes differ.
and I think something very valuable that you're bringing up right now is not wanting them to be the same, but to take them as they are and help them grow from there. Did I understand that right?
Yes, as they are, and let them bring out the best of their nature, and you just help them however you can.
Do you think that in Mexico, money in families, and since you know a lot of entrepreneurs and so on, is still a taboo topic that people don't talk about much? Or do you think among families? Yes, like this financial education, which is probably more normalized in other countries. Do you think that here we're already having those conversations?
I'm going to tell you something interesting. Um, we're doing, I have several book clubs. One that we're doing on social media, another that I do with a lot of people who work with me. You can't imagine how hard it is to find 25 or 30 books on topics that aren't the usual ones.
Okay.
And now that you mention it, hey, how open is the conversation? The book or one of the best selling books is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The conversation is definitely happening. I don't think it has many layers of depth, but I do think the conversation is happening and it's become an open topic. I think in general, it's something people talk about.
I mean, I also think it's a very popular book, and it really shows you the contrast by giving you the example of a dad who's always complaining about money, who isn't very financially smart, right? Then there's the other one who's more financially savvy, the one you learn from. So I think we all kind of get that message from Robert Kiyosaki, which is pretty good. By the way, I once shared a panel with him, and it's a key message, but I don't know how much it's really. I mean, honestly, that's how I feel. I think Shark Tank was one of the first educational programs about this.
About business. About business. Yes, I think it did help, but for example, like we were saying about the book, right? I mean, it's very simple. It's the father who invests and the father who spends. It's that simple.
Okay.
And you as a dad have to, and as a father or mother, regardless of how much you earn, you have to know if you're the one who spends or the one who invests. And that's what they're going to learn.
Exactly. What about the relationship part? Because sometimes, and we have a lot of men listening to us, you go out there, work hard, do everything you have to do to put food on the table, or the woman does the same. And the kids just want to spend, or one of the partners just wants to spend. Do you think that, I mean, there are two examples at play, you know what I mean? There's the poor dad and the rich dad there. And while you're saying, well, everyone will take reality as it is, what can we tell them? Like a hack or tip, like, hey, wake up and pay attention to this point so you can be a team for that child instead of setting a confusing example.
Look, if you're already married, you're the one they should follow you and watch your podcast because you give that advice really well. But if you're not married yet, looking at it from a financial and business perspective, you have to choose your partner based on one fundamental premise:
What is it?
equal missions, long relationships, different missions, short relationships. And what do I mean by this, especially on your podcast? If you are an entrepreneur and you're determined to succeed at any cost, well, your partner or your wife has to be on board with that same plan.
Uh huh.
Because there will be birthdays you won't celebrate with her.
Uh huh.
Some weekends you won't be there. There will be trips where you'll have to leave for business. There will be your kids' soccer games that you won't go to. There will be your kids' graduations that you won't be at because you'll have to fulfill your duties. You can't do both. I don't know anyone who started from scratch or with very little by becoming an entrepreneur. And in those early years, I mean, the first decade or two,
Uh huh.
who can manage and balance both. There is no balance when you're starting a business because you're competing with people who are hungry. They're ruthless, they go all in, and they want to succeed. So, what are you willing to sacrifice? If you're with someone who's family oriented and wants everyone to have dinner at home at 7 in the evening and then spend Saturday and Sunday together as a family and eat together once or twice a week, and you have that entrepreneurial spirit, you're bound to fail. They're separate missions.
Okay. Unless she backed you and didn't overreact to things.
If she says, look, I understand that you won't be there, I'll take care of these things, we're a team. And so let's do, what can I do to support you so you can be an entrepreneur? And there's also something else that happens. When you're an entrepreneur and you're passionate about your business, it's the only thing you think about. And if it's not the only thing you think about, someone from the competition who is only thinking about that is going to beat you. What happens if you only think about that? Well, you're not even thinking about your anniversary. You forget. You're not even thinking about someone's birthday. I mean, you can do it out of habit. But it's not something that naturally, emotionally, you're saying, happy birthday, I prepared, because you don't have the space in your mind to do it, not because you don't love the person. It has nothing to do with that.
No?
They're priorities that you defined. Nobody forced you. And with your partner, you have to be very clear and very transparent to see if those missions are the same.
Both of you, despite different positions, support the same thing. You'll help from there, I'll help from here, but I need focus.
That's right.
Have you seen that happen in real life?
Yes.
Have you seen them go bankrupt because of that?
No.
Most of them go bankrupt.
But I have seen some cases, and those are couples with incredible synergy.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes, I've seen couples who have been together for 15, 18 years, and they're partners in crime. They support each other. I mean, it's a really beautiful synergy. They're very rare, but they do exist.
And what happens, or what would happen, can you imagine, or have you experienced it, if the entrepreneur gives up on this dream to keep harmony at home?
No, it's fine. Well, then you're no longer an entrepreneur?
And I imagine he feels very frustrated, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think you can say, look, I had the dream of being an entrepreneur and starting my own businesses and having a certain level of success. But well, I'm going to limit myself because right now I find it much more satisfying to focus on my family. Those are choices. Those are choices, yes. The problem is when you don't decide, that's when things break down, right? And the problem is when you think you're going to do one thing and your instinct, your nature calls you to something else. The only thing you can't do is betray your nature.
I love that. You talk about a kind of vocation, like a calling. Do you think people are really clear about it, or do we just live according to what we think we should be? Because I feel like a lot of people give up on many things, but in an inconsistent way. And that's why it doesn't work here or there, because they're going against their own nature. So, how can you help us understand what that calling feels like? How?
Look, there are no words, there's no way to define it. And here's something that's very important: instinct comes before thought. When something instinctual feels wrong, it feels wrong. Instinct comes before thought and reasoning. When you decide that you're going to sacrifice your entrepreneurial spirit, if you really have it for a family life, with certain characteristics that in this case your wife or your partner wants, then you don't have the instinct. It wasn't for you.
Okay.
I mean, when you can't sacrifice your instinct, it's because you really can't, because then it starts to hurt you. You get sick, it goes against your human nature. And that's a calling that we all have, and it's very different and very respectable. How different is one thing from another? And it doesn't mean you love your family more or less. It has nothing to do with that. I mean, it's simply about where your instinct and your calling are leading you.
Has that instinct ever cost you anything?
Yes.
Do you want to tell me something?
Yes. Well, it cost me first when I was married, when I had my kids. Well, yes, it involved long hours and many days of work, and that led us to separate. And later, in general, it has always been because I'm built that way, and it would be a betrayal of my instinct. I'm built to prioritize work. That's just how I am. It's my instinct and nature, though it may not be right. I've sacrificed a lot. Well, many times I've gone to my kids and told them, hey, now that I have more time, I really want to spend a lot of time with you. Because I didn't get to enjoy being with them as much as I would have liked during their childhood. But fortunately, I really enjoy being with them now.
Okay.
And that it gives me a lot of satisfaction.
Do you think you would be the same Rodrigo Herrera you are today if you hadn't been true to that instinct?
No, I don't think so. And you get frustrated. And the opposite is also true. I mean, when you have a strong calling for business or to dedicate yourself to your family life and you sacrifice one for the other, you feel bad. I mean, there are a lot of people who work and suddenly you say, hey, we're going to have an event. We have to go to a fair this weekend. And you can see they're genuinely anxious because they have their plan set. And you say, you know what? Let's change the event so that you have to build your life around what your true nature is and what calls you. Not around trends other people impose, not around what people say success is, not around the house someone told you you should have, not around the watch or the car. No, from what is truly your nature, the calling of what you want to have. That's what you have to build your life around, no matter what.
Amen. That fulfillment that many of us are looking for is definitely influenced by everything you just mentioned. We are looking for what society tells us, what material success tells us, what consumer society, a thousand things. The new trend. What? Beyond work. I see that you are someone who, I mean, from what I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong or confirm it, you are a very fulfilled person. You really take good care of yourself. You, Rodrigo, are doing well. You've kept your business afloat. It's been a huge business. Besides, your team cares about you. That fulfillment that's visible now and that you can't deny, how did you start paying attention to that outside of business? Because if you were so focused, you could have forgotten, for example, about your body, your physique, your good habits. And I know it's also something that really defines you. How were you able to water all your little plants?
Look, there's a very interesting exercise I did many years ago in a master's program about values. And so it was really interesting because there were about 70 people in the classroom. They put us at tables of 10 people and gave us a list of 20 values. Fundamental ones. I mean, freedom, God, children, your country, 20 values. And he leaves us, the professor, a great teacher, may he rest in peace. And he leaves the sheet on each table. And he says to us, okay, I'll be back in 20 minutes. You all have to agree on which one is the most important, the second, the third, the fourth. Well, and that starts to turn into a whole commotion. And everyone says, no, because freedom, without freedom, it's nothing. No, the children, because the children. God, because know yourself. So, well, it was something. He comes back after 20 minutes and says, what happened? How are we doing? No, let's see. Who already has all five ranked? Nobody. Who already has number two and number one? Well, one group over there had put God or whatever it was. After 20 minutes, he returns and asks who has it. No one does. He comes back again and says it's over. This is to show what a conflict of values is.
Okay.
What is true is that experts and philosophers tell you that what has to come before anything else, for if you are religious, for you to be able to worship God, for you to be able to take care of your children, for freedom to exist, you have to take care of yourself as a person. You have to be whole yourself. I think that's fundamental. You have to be deeply selfish in taking care of ourselves first, so that later we can give the best of ourselves to take care of what really matters to us.
I love it. It makes sense to me. I'm sure it does to people too. However, in practice, I think you're one of the few examples we see actually living by that value, because we often see the business person or entrepreneur forgetting about themselves. They invest so much thought and energy into the business and everything else that they forget about themselves. It's good you brought it up with me because you're the vehicle, the one who's going to bring about the result. If you're not well, how is your business going to be well?
Now, I don't think they go hand in hand. Some people are careless, smoke, eat, and let themselves go, yet they're still very successful. I think these are separate things, especially economically. Now, there is something that when you feel healthy, I think it gives you a different sense of fulfillment in a broader range of things. But it's also a
And that fulfillment, what does it look like in your day to day life, Rodrigo? I mean, just imagining how you have to manage a corporation of this size. I imagine you're here from 7 in the morning to 9 at night.
no.
What does your day to day look like?
No, it's already very I'm very much a night person, so I'm not a morning person.
No? Do you sleep in late?
But I go to bed very late, yes.
Okay. I mean, you make up for the time.
Yeah, my body clock runs late.
For example, when do you go to sleep?
Well, around 3 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yes.
Do you get creative then, or what happens?
Yes, I read a lot at night.
Okay, yes. And then what time do you usually get up roughly?
Around 9 or 10.
Okay, that's not that late either. So after that, do you go to work, hit the gym, or what does your day usually look like?
It really varies. All my days are very different, but I go to the gym almost every day. It's my priority. I mean, I do set aside a 2 hour block to go to the gym. My full routine, which I only do on weekends, actually takes about 4 hours.
At the gym?
I mean, because it's the gym, then it's the ultralight, this light, LED. Then there's a chair that gives you, like for meditation, sauna, cold plunge.
Okay. And well, however, do you try to stick to your routine day by day, or is there no routine? Is it just how the day goes?
No, there's no routine.
Not about the gym. I mean, your day in general, things like watering all the plants.
I don't really have a routine.
No?
I had one for many years, but today I don't have a routine. I have meetings and different things, and I always carve out time, except in exceptional cases, so I can exercise.
Okay.
And my advice is if the job you have doesn't give you enough, if you don't have enough time to exercise, change jobs. If you don't have the time, change jobs.
True, that's true. There are many entrepreneurs, and you met plenty on Shark Tank. Going back to this part about instinct, who surely stood there in front of you, and especially when they made the offers and got deeper when they showed you more of their cards, right? And so, did you see a real difference between the people who were starting a business just because it was trendy to be an entrepreneur and the people who really had this calling or
Look, I'm going to tell you something. If there's one thing I learned today, I mean, more than ever, it's being able to identify who is truly an entrepreneur.
okay?
After 10 or 15 minutes of talking to someone and having them pitch to me, I know if they truly have the characteristics needed to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Which ones would you say are the most important?
It's just that these are things that, I mean, there's what we all already know, right?
Yes.
But sometimes I see certain signs that definitely keep you out of ventures that are going to succeed.
Okay. Give me a couple of examples.
I can give you plenty. I mean, number one is when you think about what you're going to do with the money you're going to earn.
Okay.
That's number one. That's it.
Okay.
Number two is when you're looking for some kind of status or recognition of any kind.
Okay.
Some award, a photo, being in some magazine as the future of so and so. If you do it for the purpose of, hey, this helps me for publicity, for that's fine. But if it's about recognition, then you no longer have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Because as an entrepreneur, naturally, when you start, you spend a lot of time waiting to be seen. I mean, I remember going to the retail chains when I was starting out, and I would wait in the lobby for 2 or 3 hours. There was a day I waited to be seen for 12 hours. I won't say where, but it was 12 hours.
Waiting room?
Yes, sit in the waiting room so you can wait and the buyer can meet you.
Oh, right. When you were going to sell.
Yes, when I was going to sell.
Okay.
You have to keep your ego completely under control. That's another sign you see and say, this one right here, this one doesn't work.
Okay.
Another one that's also very important is the time you dedicate to it. It's very interesting. The time you dedicate to it, like how can I put it? I mean, the time you dedicate to your hobbies.
Okay. In what way?
Yes, for example, if you're an entrepreneur
Uh-huh.
and you're passionate about golf,
Okay.
and then you go and play golf or for whatever reason, and you're looking into golf stuff. No.
Okay. Rodrigo Herrera might ask what seems like an innocent question. Do you play golf? How much time do you spend playing? And you show off every day, 5 hours.
Yeah, hey, well, cut it.
We don't invest there.
Not there. No, because it means your passion, your heart is somewhere else, and there's something very important. Remember that we can't be in love with two things at the same time, and we always have to be in love with a project, a dream, or someone.
Okay.
And it's very hard to have that space in your heart, that kind of passion where you can say, hey, look, I'm passionate about whatever it is. Let's say golf. I'm passionate about golf and I read the magazines. But you're no longer looking at the magazines in your industry. You're no longer keeping up with the trends in what you're doing. And that's another sign, another clue that that's not the way, that it's not for you.
You mentioned that you really like to read.
Yes.
What happens if someone, it's a double question. If someone tells you, I really like to read, do you see it as a green flag or some kind of red flag? Because it likely doesn't go beyond the intellectual level. I mean,
No, it has nothing to do with it. I mean, an entrepreneur can be successful without reading. Now, without reading, they'll get this far, but they won't go beyond that. If they read, they can go much further.
the same applies to someone who reads but doesn't act.
Yes, it has nothing to do with it. I mean, reading is not a guarantee that you'll be a good entrepreneur. Now, if you're a good entrepreneur and you read, it makes you exponentially better.
These days, TikTok, artificial intelligence, and instant dopamine hits are all intense. Do you still think that reading physical books will continue? Do you think it's something we'll be able to maintain? And do you recommend it?
No, I think the people who are going to win the most are the ones who read. I mean, it's the only thing that sets you apart, even to be able to write a prompt. I see a lot of people and I see how they make prompts and it catches my attention. I mean, sometimes I see the answers the AIs give them and I think, why did it give you that kind of absurd answer? And it's because the prompt isn't really a prompt. With a complete education where it can all be integrated. So without a doubt, the one who reads is going to be the one who wins.
And it's always been a bit like that. I mean, the more you prepare yourself, the more you self educate, the more you grow. And in these times, we have so many tools that it would be a bit, oh, it would be ridiculous not to use them. We have everything we need to learn. I mean, these podcasts or things like that can also be ways to integrate information, but you also have to put it into practice. So
it's really important, like what's on your feed. I was talking a few days ago about how memory, after you reach a certain age, you don't lose memory. We never lose memory unless you have an illness, but you don't lose memory. Memories get replaced by new memories. So every time you're scrolling and suddenly you see the dog and then something else, that memory replaced another synapse that was in your brain. And maybe you replaced some very important technical knowledge or something about history or some concept with this new memory about something a dog is doing
because of a meme,
because of a meme.
yes, yes, yes.
The most important thing is it's a hard drive that's limited, whatever you put on the hard drive. And every time you're scrolling, it's replacing, you're wiping the hard drive, you're putting in this new information. It's crazy.
I like that hard drive analogy because, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's overwhelming with so much information because we're limited and we have to be careful about what we put into our heads. Now, there's also the other side, what we post and blah, 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 right? So I thought of you. Recently, I went to a summit in Dubai. They brought the biggest content creators in the world, and I had the honor of speaking there alongside Mr. Beast, Will Smith, Simon Squibb, and many others. And I thought of you.
I saw you around. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I remembered you because I remember that in an interview or somewhere I heard you say that 1 out of every 20 people should be a content creator, something like that.
And I still think so.
And you don't just think it, you live it, Rodrigo. I just got here to record the podcast with you since you kindly invited me to your office, to your offices, and you were recording your own content. I mean, you embody it. Why is that so important to you? Because also, like I said, in Dubai, they're trying to create a creator economy. What are you all seeing that many others aren't seeing?
The most important talent a person will have in the new era of artificial intelligence and gene editing and all these changes that are coming will be reading comprehension, writing ability, and communication skills. By developing those three abilities, you'll be able to empathize with many people. That's why I think it's extremely important. Now, there's another topic, which is content already generated by artificial intelligence, which will be undetectable. Today's technology makes it possible. This is artificial intelligence, meaning people will never know.
Yeah, supposedly YouTube and others are creating obstacles, but
Yeah.
who knows? Now, what if your child or anyone's child said to us, Dad, I want to be an influencer, I want to be a content creator? For example, your friend here, what would you tell him? Would you take him seriously? And what would you tell others? Should they take it seriously?
I mean, would you celebrate them?
Yes?
Of course. I mean, look, let's understand, let's think about the future. Let's think about the future of humanity with things. No one knows for sure what's going to happen, but we do know some things, some topics. Let's say artificial intelligence keeps evolving. I mean, today the AI we use is the least intelligent model we're going to use for the rest of our lives.
Yes, it's the initial one.
It will become increasingly accurate each time. Number one. Number two, humanoid robots are coming. They're going to replace jobs. Universal basic income will surely come. What's the only thing we'll be able to have? The ecosystem of people around us. How many people listen to us and what content we're putting out? How relevant is it? Do you realize how relevant your advice on family life and relationships is to your audience? It's something very relevant when people make the decision to become influencers, that they specialize in a topic, study it deeply, and are able to get people to talk about that topic. And giving it to them, packaged as content on your phone, is extraordinary. That's going to become increasingly valuable.
I love it. Support your children like they supported me. Because people with this level of success in another field are watching. And that's also why I mentioned Dubai. They're seeing that this is coming really strong. Let's not limit ourselves or stick to a traditional mindset since many still believe only traditional careers will secure your future.
No, those are already definitely not, no, even medicine. It's a tragedy because honestly, I think there's no vocation more relevant, more dedicated, and that gives more to others than doctors. It's incredible. They sacrifice their youth. They sacrifice, I mean, many years of their lives. And today, well, we have artificial intelligence that's going to surpass us in operations, in surgeries, in many things. So empathy is fundamental, and social media helps with that.
Empathy is a topic that Rodrigo Herrera has been bringing up for a while as very. It's something you really champion today. What made you start talking so much about empathy? What happened that made you mention it so often?
Look, I think there's a way of looking at people. For example, when there's right now, like a few years ago, the earthquake or the hurricane, do you get mad at the hurricane? Why, hurricane? And you call it by its name, Otis, damn you. Well, no, you don't get mad. I mean, it's a fact that exists. It's something that happened, that's part of nature. If we can understand people as facts, as being a certain way, and instead of trying to change them, we try to understand them and deal with them accordingly, it creates a much more dynamic, much easier, and more harmonious situation. So that has been a very important mission in my life over the past few years. I think the most important attribute a person can have is empathy.
I love it. Empathy means that you've experienced many things, or at least you put yourself in someone else's shoes and mind. And I like how you mention it because one of the main causes of suffering in life in general, in relationships, is less about events and more about how we interpret them and resist reality. So, as you said, you can't fight a hurricane, stop fighting with everyone, see them as they are. Try to be compassionate because everyone has their own battles, but also if you see that there's not going to be any progress, well, just filter it, right? Set boundaries. Do you bring this empathy to all your relationships, including workers, colleagues, everyone, or is it difficult?
You try, I try, I mean, you try to do it and be more tolerant. Obviously, it's difficult for everyone. I mean, it's very difficult because we are a certain way, we have our own way of being. And I think that in business, it's very important to look for the best possible result with the team and the people you have and try to build the best team. But when you have, this is a fact. I mean, and this happened when the Google algorithm was discovered with these great milestones of innovation. They happen when two or three factors that are already very clear come together. There is a group of passionate people working as a team, having fun with a common mission, and that's where the magic happens. Very rare. Maybe, well, the example, now the exception that proves the rule is Isaac Newton, right? Who did everything. I mean, he invented calculus and everything he did all alone during a pandemic, right?
I like it, but I'm not sure if you mentioned it for this reason before moving on. I'm not sure if you say that, so let's see. Let's empathize, but when we have to achieve a common goal, well, we can't get into 2,000 topics where I have to empathize with 100 things. We need to move forward, and there's also a lot of individual responsibility there. So, yes, be empathetic. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not about playing the victim so that everyone empathizes with us either. We have to be a group that pulls together, that produces, that works toward the common good, right? So,
Yeah, it's just that, look, in business, in the family, there's something, what brings people together more than anything else is being able to let go of individualism. It's when there's a common mission for a group.
that's beautiful. I like that.
You can't let the group down because you're not just letting yourself down anymore and your own nature by not doing what you do, but you're also letting down everyone who's part of a group that has a mission. Well, it could be a higher mission or not, or one that changes the world, that has an impact on the world, but the group's mission, it's extremely powerful.
But look, what you say is beautiful, and here I'm going to ask you if you see it that way. But everything you're talking about regarding business companies also applies to your relationships and to your children. I mean, if the greater good is let's take care of each other as a group, we'll achieve more than if we just focus on individualism, which often leads to power struggles and egos. Do you think, just between you and me, without giving official definitions, that marriage could be like a company, like a business?
I think that if both decide that's how it should be, then yes.
What would that decision look like? What would need to happen? Both would have to act for the common good.
That is with the same mission, and that they approach it like, hey, we're on the same mission, and the mission can be as diverse as each couple wants, right? I mean, there's this very famous case of the three chess players. I think she was from the Czech Republic and he was Russian, or vice versa. They meet through correspondence, get together, and decide to prove that talent is a myth. And from there, they say, hey, let's do something. Let's get married. Let's have children. And we'll educate them so people can see that anyone can be the best in the world at anything. And they ask, what should we get them into? The first child is a girl. And they ask, what should we get her into? No, not tennis, because then people will say it's genetic. Okay, no, not that. What about a physical sport? No, because then they'll say, so which one doesn't have that? No, since no one can say chess. They said, perfect. Then they had a second and a third child. And the life mission of that couple was together, as scientists, to show the world that natural talents don't exist, that you can create and develop them. There's a very good book called Bounce, which is about this topic. But that was the mission of that couple. And they proved it. They became the three best chess players. I think the youngest of the three beat Kasparov on one occasion. They proved their case and were passionate about their mission since both were scientists. I think that with your partner, if you have that extraordinary mission, whatever it may be, and you both have the same mission, well, the relationship can last a long time. If not, the relationship will be short.
The one who said he wouldn't give good relationship advice, you also talk about it very well. There's a saying, speaking a bit more about the new generations, where, as we've already discussed, example, education, and so on also play a role. But there's a saying we've all heard in different ways that goes, the first generation builds, the second maintains, and the third destroys. The famous hardworking grandfather, the father as administrator, and the grandson as spendthrift. Do you believe in that rule?
I think that historically it's been proven that this rule does exist, but I think that today it's changing a lot. It's hard for fortunes to last through generations to begin with because they get diluted. I mean, if there's someone who created 100 and then has 5 children, well, each one gets 20. And if those have 5, they each get 4. Just in 2 generations, it gets diluted. But I think that now, with everything we know, you can have very good education for future generations.
Let me ask you, friend to friend, you have kids. I don't. And one of the things that makes me think the most about having kids, look, I come from very hardworking parents. I was an entrepreneur. I've done very well. I'm doing very well, but I've also had some really tough times. It's how am I going to make sure they succeed? I mean, it's a huge responsibility, right? Initially, you become controlling, thinking, I'll do everything I can so they can do whatever they want and always have my support. But then you say that's not how it is. So, how can we, beyond just setting an example, how can we instill that hunger in our children when they're living very comfortably? I mean, I know we already touched on this a bit, but I want to reinforce this point. What would you say to me, Johnny? Is that a valid concern, or do you think I'm worrying too much?
I don't know. I think part of it is something they're born with. And another part is very clear. I mean, you could say they're born with it. Well, then why is the percentage of successful people from the new generation in South Korea much higher? I mean, what changed? They came out of extreme poverty 50 years ago, and today they have the highest number of patents per capita. I mean, education is fundamental. And now to be able to highlight a bit more of what I have seen, studied, and discussed. And very clear examples are to start with the reasoning process from a very young age.
Reasoning. Yes. How?
I mean, they have to know how to reason.
Okay.
There's a mistake that for me is unacceptable that I don't accept, and if someone makes it, we don't hire them or they have to leave. I don't allow a decimal point error. I mean, someone missing the decimal point, not because they made an arithmetic mistake, but because of a lack of reasoning. Right? I mean, like you say, hey, there are 15 of us here. The average weight of the people is There are 5 people who weigh 60 kilos, 5 who weigh 70, and 5 who weigh 80. And you do the math. What's the average weight of the people? And he says 700 kilos. You're fired. I mean, because you didn't think it through, just a decimal point, and then decimal point errors are the ones you can't allow your children to make because it's a lack of reasoning. It's not about ability, it's about a lack of reasoning.
Okay, let's say that with your story, the example you said, the drive you have, all of it, you raise your children well. How do you see future generations in this whole new era of artificial intelligence? Even though you say that in Korea the new generations are more successful, a lot of people are afraid. And here's where I'd add my own fear, whether future generations will be able to get ahead. Do you think it will get harder or stay as hard as always?
Look, I think it's going to be easier.
Easier.
Each time it's been easier.
Okay.
I mean, today is the easiest time in history to start a business. And for your business, I mean, you don't even need a product anymore. It might be a digital product. And you put it out there and get it in front of people on social media. I mean, this was unthinkable just 20 or 25 years ago. Let's say 30 years. 30 years ago, to talk to someone, you either had to be at a point of sale or open your own store or advertise somewhere. I mean, today it's super easy. Today you can even do it organically. I mean, today it's easier than ever.
Even with globalization and global competition, do you think it's easier?
Yes.
Why?
Because yes, that's globalization. But when you start local, create a successful business model and start replicating it, globalization works in your favor.
Okay, I mean, there's a bigger market. There are more potential customers. Rodrigo, before I say goodbye and thank you for your time and for this very enjoyable conversation on various topics, if you could give some advice to the new generations, especially to those who want to put in very little effort and get everything easily, one piece of advice, some advice about fulfillment and money, what would you say to them? What do you feel moved to tell them so that they can live fulfilling lives and have a good relationship with money?
My advice would be that you really understand your instinct, what your true calling is. That you block out outside stimuli, block out what people say you should have, and block out what people say you should be. That you listen to yourself and do whatever inner work is necessary so you can channel all that energy and touch the world in your own unique and special way. And that will surely make you much happier than fitting into a stereotype we've learned we have to fit into.
Beautiful advice. And not just for the new generations. It resonated with me. I'm serious and with everyone because many times we get distracted and forget what we want by trying to meet standards and social conditioning. Rodrigo, I love talking with you. If you who listened to this conversation, which was very different for me, with a leading business figure, please let us know with a like so more people can see it. Subscribe to the channel so you get the next interviews and episodes. And above all, share it. Share it with your children, share it with your partner, share it with anyone you think it might help. That being said, Rodrigo, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It was an honor, and we'll give you the traditional round of applause we do here on set.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.